these Democrats and others, many of them, most of them, want to change the fabric and the substance of the America we know and love, and it is time we bring America back home.
By all indications, the current one-party government is about to end. Every poll and every bit of history says that the party in power in midterm elections loses seats. Let's take a look at these numbers now. When the president's popularity drops below 50%, the president's party loses an average of 43 seats. That's an average. President Biden's popularity is well below 50%. Joining me here in Dallas, Ashley Hayek from America First, and also Rob Astorino, a former candidate for governor from New York, and in Washington, TBN's Erick Stakelbeck. He's outside the Capitol. And also Pastor Alan Jackson joining us here tonight in Dallas. Welcome to you all. Erick, let's start with you. What's the latest with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi? I ask because obviously we're looking at a flip of control of the House. That means she likely will no longer be the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, Doug, it's all but guaranteed that the Republicans will win the House tonight. Now, Nancy Pelosi gave an interview just yesterday saying that the attack on her husband, Paul Pelosi, late last month may affect her decision to return. Now, who will be Speaker? Obviously, Republicans, Kevin McCarthy will be Speaker on the Republican side, but who will lead the House, I should say, on the Democrat side? And there's some jockeying if Nancy Pelosi perhaps steps aside, not only loses that Speaker position, Doug, but leaves Congress altogether. Remember, she's 82 years old. Steny Hoyer, the House Majority Leader, also 82. James Clyburn, the Democrat whip, 82 years old as well. So if there is a red wave tonight in the House, which appears very likely, Democrats will be calling for new blood to lead the House. And we have Hakeem Jeffries, Doug, from New York, is vying for Pelosi's spot, as well as Adam Schiff in California. But it appears clear that she will no longer be House Speaker after tonight. Turnout has been major, especially in Republican areas. And it looks like Pelosi, those days, and she's been counted out before, but this time at the age of 82. And again, she says that her husband, the attack on him really shook her, apparently, Doug. She was the supposed target of that attack, not her husband. So she appears very rattled by that. A lot of factors that seem to suggest that Nancy Pelosi will no longer be the Speaker of the House.
No doubt rattled by that whole experience, and reasonably so. Probably likely rattled by the outcome of tonight's election as well. Erick, we'll be checking in with you throughout the evening. We are, of course, at Trinity Broadcast Network, so we're going to turn to Pastor Alan Jackson next. One thing I do know, I have a lot of questions about the mystery of God, but I know he is not political.
No, we have to believe God transcends politics. And the obvious part of tonight is we're tracking a political process and political outcomes. But I think we also have to remember we're watching the Spirit of God move in our nation. It's a referendum in many ways on the health of the church. Liberty and freedom come from God, not from governments. And I believe God has been awakening his people. We've been asleep for too long. We were not paying attention while our freedoms and liberties were being forfeited. And I believe we're watching a change in that, and tonight is one step forward in that process.
Mm-hmm. I said he's not political. He is, in many respects, the truth. It's something that the rest of us mere mortals try to pursue. And I suppose that's what we're really trying to pursue. The American public and the American form of democracy is a pursuit of the truth. That's a good thing.
Absolutely. And I think we have to separate politics from current events. I don't believe God advocates for a party or a particular, even a platform, but I believe what's happening in our world is very much the story of the church, and we have to have the courage to talk about it. In Daniel chapter 2, Daniel said God raises up leaders and he puts them down. And we have to believe that. If God isn't involved in the fabric of our lives, our faith is theoretical and it's useless. So tonight's a spiritual referendum just as much as it was one on political parties.
We'll be checking in with you throughout the evening. Really appreciate this perspective that we have, this unique perspective that no other network is going to have tonight. Let's turn to Rob Astorino. He is a former gubernatorial candidate in the state of New York on more than one occasion. Also the county executive, former county executive of Westchester County, a prominent county just north of New York City. Rob, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, it's great to be here. We're watching 12 races right now because the polls just closed in Kentucky. And we'll go through the list. And I tell you, it's going to be, I think, Doug, a big red wave tonight, and we're going to start to see that. Now, this one is pretty easy to call early, and they did. Rand Paul is going back to the Senate for 6 more years. And then the one in Florida, I think, is going to be really interesting. DeSantis and Chris, I don't even think it's going to be close, but we'll find out if Charlie Crist can make a comeback. And, of course, on the Senate side, you got Marco Rubio against Val Demings, and the expectation there is that Rubio would win as well. All eyes are on the Peach State. You've got the rematch, Brian Kemp against Stacey Abrams, and the polls have Kemp winning and winning big. And if that happens, you got to expect that would help Herschel Walker, who's running in the Senate race against Raphael Warnock. That could determine who controls the upper chamber in D.C. In South Carolina, they've called it already for Tim Scott. He beats Christy Matthews, so a good win for Tim Scott. Many feel he could be a vice president or potentially even president if he decides to run.
On that note, whatever person finds himself in a leadership role here would be a fool not to pick Tim Scott.
He's great.
He's just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he's great. I've seen him speak. He's
and
wonderful.
Overlooked oftentimes.
Yes, he is. Quiet. In Ohio, this is another battleground state which has really been trending red over the last several cycles. Tim Ryan, who has tried to portray himself as sort of middle of the road against J.D. Vance, and that's going to be a toss-up. And then we've got two Virginia races in the House, which is very, very important. The Luria and Kiggins race in 2, and in District 7, you got Spartanburger against Vega in the D.C. suburbs. So a lot of races that the numbers are going to be coming in real soon. 12 states already. The polls are closed. Let the counting begin.
It's really important, I think, this Rand Paul race, although the outcome of that was not in doubt. His presence in the Senate is going to be absolutely key if the Senate turns to Republican control as well, because he's got a lot of hearings that he wants to conduct, and I can think of a few faces out there in the Washington crowd that he wants to target, probably chief among them, Anthony Fauci.
Yeah.
So look for that. We've got a guest on board now. We also have a guest from across the country tonight on this all-important night. So let's get started with an interesting congressman from New Jersey, Jeff Van Drew, who used to be a Democrat and switched to Republican Party. Perhaps a sign of what's ahead tonight, Congressman?
Well, I think we are going to have a very good night. I think it's a night when we're going to restore, to begin the process of restoring America to where we know she can be and what she really is a great country. Issues are out there, they abound, and we have to begin work as soon as we get this majority. I believe at the end of the day, we will have it both in the House and the Senate, and it's time to roll up our sleeves and then be strong and tough and really not be weak Republicans, but strong Republicans that are going to push to make sure that we have our own sources of energy, push to make sure that we honor our police and don't demean or diminish or in any way defund them. Make sure that we have a military that is a strong military and that we don't focus on the wrong things in the military, but focus again on having a strong nation with a strong military. We have to make sure that we close our borders and that we have strong borders and that we have the law enforcement that we need there and that we have the border patrol that we need and that we build the wall. We have to ensure that we never have an Afghanistan again. We have to make sure that we don't continue to just have policies that are going to create and actually push forward more inflation. We have to go in the reverse direction, and we have to stop so much wasteful spending on so many things that don't matter. We have to take care of our kids. We have to ensure that our kids aren't giving all kinds of distorted, woke information in their textbooks, that they are learning what they need to learn, and that America once again becomes a country of strong educational values, that are real, and that we compete with the rest of the world and be number one, and not only in our country, but around the world. That we be the best.
You no doubt saw President Biden's speech of last week where he said that this election is all about a threat to democracy. He did not say this specifically, but implicit in his remarks and given his record over the past 2 years was that your party is the threat to democracy. What does that do to heal this country or to find some center ground that everybody can agree upon? And is your party and its oversight role of the administration going to go too far in seeking retribution for some of the hearings that the Democrats have conducted?
I don't believe we'll go too far, but that we do need to have hearings. We need to learn more what's going at the top levels of the FBI, the Department of Justice, what has happened during COVID, what Dr. Fauci really has done, what is going on with not only President Biden, but with his son. Not too much, but important information we need to know. But we need to work on all those other things that I mentioned that are so unbelievably important. He has hurt our country. He is the worst president I can ever remember, perhaps the worst president of the United States this country has ever seen. And the harm to democracy, the threat to democracy is not Republicans. We're here to save democracy. The threat to democracy is Joe Biden, his policies, and the majority policies. And that's why Nancy Pelosi is leaving. She's seen a lot of scary things in her life. Most of them have been promulgated by her. But nevertheless, she's leaving because she doesn't want to see a new America, the America we've always known. She wants to go to something different. Let me say this real quick. These Democrats and others, many of them, most of them, want to change the fabric and the substance of the America we know and love. And it is time we bring America back home.